Now when you bleed the brakes, you want to bleed the front left one, front right one, rear right, and then rear left. This is all that I had to use to do the brake job on the Honda Ridgeline. 10mm ratchet, my little push rod, my vacuum pump, and your choice of brake fluid. I believe the Ridgeline can take .3 or .4. Now, the reason you want to change your brake fluid every 30,000 miles or every 3 years is because it can get water inside the lines, like condensation, and if there's any water settling inside the lines, it can make it rust. So the more often you change out the brake fluid, the less likely you're going to develop rust inside the lines. Okay, so I'm bleeding the brakes on this 2014 Ridgeline Special Edition, and I found the easiest way to do it. If you notice, I haven't even pulled the wheels off of it. But I can actually fit underneath the vehicle, and you can see I got it hooked on the bleeder valve there. I taped a trash bag on the bottom of the wheel just to protect it in case some fluid spilled on it, because the wheels are painted. But yeah, I'm getting it drained. And the first thing you want to do is siphon all the old fluid out of this reservoir right here. And it holds quite a bit, but you want to siphon all that out first and then pour some new fluid in it. Now that container on my siphon bleeder thing, the reservoir will hold about 2 1/4 of those. So you actually like keep pumping and suck a whole container's worth of fluid through your brakes, and it won't bleed dry in the reservoir. So that's what I'm doing, is running a whole container's worth through it, through each one of the brakes. Alright, here you can see I got the brake pedal pressed down. I got my little dowel rod tool pressed up against the seat. Like I said, the seat's got to go all the way back. It's got to be lifted all the way up. You want the front of the seat tilted up, not necessarily the back. But there's, down here on the very bottom of the edge, there's a hard piece of metal framing that it's pushed up against. So as I got this pressed right here, the valve was open. So what I did was I got my bleeder valve tool on the bleeder valve, got it pumped up with like 20 psi. I opened the valve, and I came over here and I pressed the pedal down with this stick. Now I'm going to go over there, I'm going to use my bleeder valve, I'm going to suck air out of it and suck fluid out of it, suck as much as I can. And then I'm going to close the valve, and after I close the valve, I'll pull this dowel rod and let the pedal come back up. Then I'll do the same thing. I'll open the brake bleeder valve and then press the pedal down with this dowel rod, and then go over there and suck on it some, and then keep repeating it. Okay, now I just closed the bleeder valve underneath the car, truck, whatever you want to call it. Now I'm pulling him up. Okay. Now I'm going to get it back under the vehicle and open the valve, and then stick that back down there to press fluid through it, and then close the valve and pull it off again. Keep repeating this. And I pumped this thing up to about 20 psi, and then open the valve. But and then after you open it, you want to close it. Now to get all the air out of it, what you want to do is pump it up to about 20 psi, and then just crack the valve open for about 1 or 2 seconds. And you'll see air bubbles coming out of that right there, or they're not really air bubbles, because, well, some of it is because it's got air in this line right here. But you'll see a bunch of bubbles for about 2 seconds, and then close the valve. So you just want to like purge the line just to get like the last little bit of air out of it. Okay, I'm bleeding the rear brake now. You're supposed to start with the front left, front right, and then rear left is the pattern to bleed them. But you can see the wheel's still on the vehicle, and I'm bleeding it with this vacuum pump. This is the last wheel you bleed, the back left one. And you can see the fluid's dirty. So most service manuals tell you to change brake fluid every 30,000 miles or every 3 years. You know, new brake fluid is clear, so one of the ways you can tell it needs to be changed is it'll be discolored like that. But this is a 2014 model Ridgeline, and this is 2024, so the fluid in it is 10 years old, so that's why I'm changing it. Now when you're bleeding your brakes, you see this fluid, how it's real dirty in the reservoir, and then right here in the line it's clear. So that's what you want to do, is you want to pay attention to the fluid in the line right here and the color of it, and once it becomes clear coming through this line right here, then you can go ahead and stop. But I'm pretty much done with this wheel. It's not going to be crystal clear. There's still going to be a little bit of residue in your brake oil or brake fluid coming from the caliper, because you really can't bleed all the old fluid out of the caliper. Some of it kind of settles in the bottom, but that looks like it's probably about as clear as it's going to get. Right there. I might bleed it one more time, like with the pedal, but that's pretty much it. Okay, on the driver's side, underneath your air intake box is where your ABS actuator is. So it's this thing with all the hoses or metal lines going to it. I don't see any bleeder valves on it, so I think you just bleed the brake calipers. Okay, I'm finished bleeding the brakes. Now the last thing to do is reconnect the battery here.